Discover the incredible truth. My son's heartwarming challenge changed my life in just minutes. Jake was a hardworking mechanic in a small Midwestern town, where hope fought its way through battered walls and the sound of rusted engines. For him, every day felt like an uphill battle, with bills piling up, a roof that needed fixing, and a little boy named Ben whose laughter echoed through their modest home. Despite the weight of it all, Jake pushed on with grit and determination, driven by the unyielding love he had for his son. Still, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a cloud of doubt settled in his heart. Could he truly provide the life Ben deserved? One sunny afternoon, while Jake wiped grease from his hands, Ben ran to him, eyes glowing with excitement. "Dad. There's a kindness competition in town. You and me, we should do it." The boy's joy was infectious, bursting with potential. But Jake felt a tightening in his chest. "We've got too much going on, buddy. We need to focus on making ends meet." Yet, Ben wasn't deterred. "But Dad, it's about helping others. We could do something amazing together." The innocence of his son's enthusiasm tugged at Jake's heart. He could feel the heaviness lift just a little. Maybe a distraction was what they needed. With a reluctant nod, Jake agreed to participate. As they set out on their first act of kindness, helping an elderly neighbor with her groceries, something unexpected happened. Laughter filled the air, and Jake found himself sharing stories, memories flashing back to his own childhood, where community was everything. Each small act, the laughter, the camaraderie, slowly rekindled a flame of optimism he thought had long burned out. As the competition progressed, Jake confronted hidden biases. He worried about the wealthier families involved, their shiny SUVs parked proudly next to his worn-out truck. Would their resources overshadow his hard work? But as he and Ben painted fences for neighbors and organized town cleanups, Jake began to realize, maybe it wasn't about winning, after all. It was about the connections they were forging. Then tragedy struck when their neighbor, a single mother, struggled to keep her home after losing her job. Jake felt the pull of compassion deep in his gut. Without a second thought, he jumped in, rallying a few neighbors to help her with repairs. The judgmental whispers of some in the competition stung, but Jake stood tall. He fought back the urge to retreat. This is what mattered, he thought. Kindness was where true wealth lay. Just as his heart soared, the competition finale loomed large. The night glimmered with promises of celebration, but Jake was crushed when Ben and he barely lost. Disillusionment crashed over him like a cold wave. How could they have poured their hearts into this, only to be overlooked? The quiet despair threatened to swallow him whole. Before he could spiral, something sparked inside him, propelled by his son's unwavering belief in kindness. He remembered the bonds forged, not the trophies. Anger bubbled, but so did hope. Standing before the community, he confronted those who had belittled him, their stunned silence ringing loud. Each judgment felt like a punch, yet compassion won out. And just when Jake thought despair would win, the community began to rally, not around trophies, but around the heartwarming stories they shared, the kindness they spread. As he immersed himself in this newfound sense of purpose, an unresolved tension stirred within him. Would he let go of past bitterness? As he looked at Ben, smiling wide with pride, a new question loomed. Was this fiery challenge the start of reclaiming his sense of self, or was there still a greater journey ahead? The sun rose slowly, casting a warm golden glow over the small Midwestern town. Jake awoke to the sound of Ben laughing, his morning energy palpable. But this day felt different. The aftermath of the competition still lingered in Jake's mind, a faint echo of what could have been. Declarations of newfound purpose hummed beneath the surface, but doubt wormed its way back in. "Dad. Are you ready?" Ben burst into the room, his enthusiasm lighting up the space. Jake tried to muster a smile, but the weight of disappointment was hard to shake. "Yeah, buddy. Just need a minute." As Ben scampered off to grab his shoes, Jake looked in the mirror. The man staring back seemed both hopeful and weary. He drew in a deep breath, reminding himself of the power of kindness they had experienced. Today, they would focus on doing more for the community, not for a trophy but for the joy of it. Stepping outside, the crisp morning air invigorated him. Ben tugged at his hand, pulling him toward the park where the first kindness project was set to unfold, a community garden. Look at all these people. We can't just plant seeds, Dad, we can plant smiles too. Under the bright sun, neighbors gathered, each carrying shovels, seeds, and buckets. Laughter resonated as they worked together, the spirit of camaraderie threading through the crowd. Jake grabbed a shovel and plunged it into the earth, feeling the cool soil under his fingers. It was grounding. With each scoop, he could feel his heart lighten. As they toiled, Jake overheard whispers of encouragement around him. I never thought I'd see Jake smiling like this again, one neighbor remarked softly. It's nice to have him back. Jake felt warmth swell in his chest. He had been hiding in a shell for too long, and here, surrounded by good people, he could feel that shell beginning to crack. As the day wore on, Ben ran up to him, dirt smeared across his cheek. Dad, look at this. He held out a small seedling with pride. We're going to grow food and flowers. And guess what? People will come and see it. They'll smile. Jake knelt beside him. You're right, buddy. It's not just about what we plant in the ground, but what we plant in each other's hearts. Their time at the garden was more than just a chore, it became a sanctuary. Kids played nearby, laughter blending with the sound of tools clinking together. For that brief moment, Jake felt a shift inside him. Maybe he could let go of the bitterness that had clung to him for so long. Perhaps he could transform it into something greater. When the day concluded, and the garden lay in bloom around them, Jake and Ben sat on a nearby bench, watching the sun paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. The weight of yesterday had shifted, even if just a little. Do you think we'll win at the kindness competition next year? Ben asked, his voice tinged with innocent hope. Jake chuckled, wrapping an arm around his son. Winning isn't everything, buddy. It's what we do together that truly counts. But in the back of his mind, a lingering question echoed: was this newfound hope the beginning of something bigger, not just for them but for their entire community? As the stars started to twinkle overhead, a thought struck him suddenly. Would the community's response to their acts of kindness inspire others to join in, or would he risk losing the momentum they had built? Those questions hung in the air, heavy with potential. The next day dawned cool and bright, the sun just peeking over the horizon. Jake stirred awake, the memory of last night's laughter still buzzing in his ears. Ben was already up, his voice ringing through the house as he tried to coax their dog, Max, into playing. Smiling at the sound, Jake found himself feeling lighter, excitement mingling with his renewed hope. Dad! Come see what I found! Ben shouted, bounding into the bedroom, beaming. Clutched in his hands was a small piece of paper, its corners crinkled and worn. What is it, champ? Jake asked as he sat up, curiosity piquing. It's a list. A list of things we could do to spread kindness around town. I thought we could add our own ideas. Ben said breathlessly, eyes wide with enthusiasm. Jake couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. His son had taken the concept of kindness and made it tangible. All right, let us see it. They spread the paper out on the kitchen table, and the two of them began to brainstorm. Jake watched as Ben's little hand scribbled furiously, ideas spilling out: helping neighbors with groceries, organizing a bake sale for charity, writing thank you notes to community helpers. The works of a child, everything was crammed with heartfelt ambition. Dad! Maybe we can host a kindness block party. Everyone can come together and share what they've done for each other. Ben exclaimed, both joyfully and matter-of-factly. That idea struck a chord within Jake. The image of people gathering, of laughter mingling with the scent of grilled burgers and baked goods, filled him with warmth. A block party sounds fantastic. We could invite everyone from the garden project and ask them to bring their friends. The days blended together as Jake and Ben set out to bring the block party idea to life. They enlisted neighbors, set up a meeting with local community leaders, and spread the word. The anticipation grew, and so did Jake's sense of purpose. He felt himself contributing, not just to the community, but also discovering a piece of himself that he thought was lost forever. But, amidst this excitement was a flicker of anxiety. What if no one showed up? What if they worked so hard, only to be met with empty chairs and silence? Those thoughts nagged at him, dimming the light of enthusiasm that Ben radiated. The day of the block party arrived, and Jake felt a storm of emotions brewing as they set up tables and chairs on the corner of their street. As the hour approached, he fought back the urge to retreat into his shell. But Ben stood strong, his joy unyielding, infectious. "Look, Dad. People are coming," Ben squealed, pointing down the street as a family approached, carrying a cooler. One by one, more neighbors appeared, each greeting one another with laughter and hugs. Jake's heart soared. As laughter filled the air and friends exchanged ideas, he realized that this was the kind of connection he had desperately sought. He turned to Ben, who was beaming from ear to ear. It was time for transformation to not only share their kindness but to receive it back as well. Yet, just as the festivities were warming up, a shadow fell over Jake as he spotted the corner of the street where a figure stood aloof, watching. This person held an unmistakable air of disdain, someone who had made it clear long ago they were not on board with Jake's plans for their community. Jake took a deep breath, a knot forming in his stomach. Would their efforts be enough to overcome judgment? Or would this moment of joy be overshadowed by the whispers of negativity? He clenched his fists, ready to confront the fear that lingered in the back of his mind as a wave of uncertainty crashed through his chest. Would the kindness they had initiated truly take root? Or was it all just a fleeting notion about to be challenged? Jake's heart raced as he made his way toward that shadowy figure, unsure of what would happen next. But deep down, a voice urged him to embrace the moment. As Jake approached the figure, every step felt heavier than the last. His heart pounded in his chest, a rhythmic drum that echoed the uncertainty swirling in his mind. The block party was all he had hoped for and more, a beautiful assembly of laughter, food, and the blossoming of community spirit. Yet here stood someone who threatened to snuff that spark. When he got closer, he could make out the unmistakable features of Clara, the one-time president of the neighborhood association. Her arms were crossed tightly, and her expression suggested a storm brewing beneath her composed exterior. "Clara," Jake greeted, trying to keep his voice steady, "I'm glad you could come." "Really?" she replied, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "You think this circus is what the neighborhood needs?" Tension crackled in the air, like static before a lightning strike. Jake felt Ben's small hand tugging on his jacket, seeking reassurance. "Actually, we're hoping to bring everyone together," Jake said, forcing a smile. "Kindness can change lives. That's what this is all about." Clara scoffed, looking past him at the gathering crowd. "Kindness? This is just a distraction. People need solutions, not parties." Ben, having digested the gravity of the conversation, stepped forward, his tiny voice unexpectedly confident. "But, Miss Clara, we're also helping each other. Like helping the people who are sad or lonely, so they know they aren't alone." Jake watched as Clara's icy demeanor crackled slightly. Perhaps it wasn't just indifference he had spotted. A hint of something deeper, perhaps fear or regret, flickered behind her hardened gaze. "What do you know about being sad or lonely?" she challenged, her voice softer but pointed. "You're just a kid." "Everyone can feel sad sometimes," Ben said, undeterred. "But we can make it better. That's what we're trying to do today." In that moment, something shifted. Jake saw the tension in Clara's shoulders loosen just a bit, as if the walls she had built were beginning to crack. Could it be that beneath her hard exterior lay a willingness to listen? Maybe she began hesitantly, "But this is just one day. What happens after the party is over? Will your kindness last?" The sun was setting, casting a warm golden hue over their gathering, illuminating Ben's small frame against the backdrop of festivity. Jake felt a rush of pride as he noticed his son's earnest expression. "We'll keep spreading kindness every day," Ben declared, determination shining in his eyes. "It's a promise, not just today." Jake couldn't help it. A smile broke through his anxiety. The sheer innocence of his son's words washed over him like a refreshing breeze. Suddenly, he felt hope bloom again. This was bigger than just a party. This was about fostering connections. Clara regarded Ben with a newfound curiosity. "And how do you plan to do that, little man?" "By inviting people to share what they can do," Ben replied. "Everyone has something to give. If we all try a little, it can turn into a lot." "See, Clara?" Jake chimed in. "It's a starting point. A way to shift the conversation. Wouldn't you want to be part of that?" For a moment, silence enveloped them as Clara mulled over their words. It was brief but significant, a fragile peace forming amongst tension. Then, a loud cheer erupted from the crowd, snapping everyone back to the moment. Jake turned to find neighbors gathered for a game, laughter swirling like music through the air. It was magic, a feeling he hadn't felt in years, an inexplicable pull to join in. "Maybe if you open up the door, we could try?" Clara's voice trembled, uncertainty dancing in her words. "That's all we need," Ben said, clapping his hands joyfully. Jake's heart swelled as he glanced at his son, his beacon of hope amidst the doubt that had shadowed him for so long. What would happen next? Would Clara become part of their mission? Or would the past cling to her longer than hoped? Before the answer settled in the air, laughter erupted around them, signaling a moment, maybe even an opportunity for real change. Jake faced the crowd, feeling the warmth of connection surround him, as uncertainty slipped away to make room for possibility. He took a deep breath, readying himself for whatever came next. Would kindness win out against skepticism on this day? Or was it just the beginning of a larger battle against the shadows that lingered? As the laughter of the gathering surrounded them, Clara's gaze softened, drawn in by the genuine joy radiating from Ben and the neighbors. She took a small step back, looking at the bright decorations fluttering in the evening breeze, the sounds of jubilant chatter mixing with the faint tunes of a nearby band. The block party wasn't just a distraction. Perhaps it was the first step toward reconnecting a community that had frayed at the edges. "Okay," Clara began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe there's some good in this. But how do you expect to frame it in something more lasting? You think people will keep coming together like this?" Jake felt his heart quicken, the glimmers of hope sparking a fire. "It's about starting conversations, right? You've been a leader here, Clara. You could help us with that. You know the struggles better than anyone." Clara opened her mouth to argue, but hesitated, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of her defenses had suddenly grown too heavy. "And what of the problems out there? The issues that push everyone apart?" Ben, eyes wide with innocence, chimed in, "Every one of them can be tackled if we work together. It's like building a puzzle. We just need to find the right pieces." Jake felt his chest swell with pride again, the way his son could see the world uncovered in a simplicity so refreshing. "Exactly. We need people like you, Clara. Your experience is essential. Let's turn this gathering into a stepping stone for more than just fun. Let it be a launchpad for change." "Change," Clara repeated, contemplating the weight of the word. "Is it really possible?" The bright lights from the party illuminated her features, revealing the struggle etched into her brow. Jake sensed their moment was fragile, a delicate opportunity to turn sparking tension into something that could heal wounds and create unity. Around them, conversations bubbled, families sharing stories, neighbors sharing laughs. He felt the soft breeze that danced through the celebration, almost like a hopeful hand encouraging their discussion forward. "What if we organized regular events? Community meetings?" Ben suggested, enthusiasm bubbling out of him. We could share ideas and feelings and work on all of it together. Exactly, Ben. Jake exclaimed, excitement bubbling inside him. We could make a real change, but only if we can get buy-in from everyone. We need someone with your passion to help lead the way. Jake diverted his gaze back to Clara, hoping for a flicker of agreement. The progression of their conversation felt like a tightrope walk. One misstep could send it all tumbling into uncertainty. Clara drew in a long breath, her walls visibly weakening. It's not that simple, you know. People, they don't just need simple, they need to feel seen. Like you just did for Ben, Jake interrupted, the fervor in his voice rising. You've already started, Clara. You've opened a door just by standing here talking with us. The world around them was pulsating with joy, but between Clara and Jake, a new energy crackled. It felt like an awakening, a spark that might light a fire of real change. I never thought I'd be having this conversation, Clara admitted, a smile breaking through the doubts tangled in her expression. Maybe it's time we all think differently, Ben said, his voice bursting with unfiltered optimism. Could a mere community gathering drive them into something bigger? Clara took a moment, deliberating beneath the glow of fairy lights that adorned the neighborhood. Just then, a loud bang erupted from the nearby cotton candy stand, startling everyone. Laughter shifted to gasps, children pointing at a colorful explosion of pink sugar that whirled into the air and rained down like sweet confetti. See? Even the unexpected can bring joy. Ben laughed, the energy infectious as the crowd burst into giggles. Jake looked at Clara, heart racing. Would she finally grasp the possibility of what was unfolding? Would she embrace this moment and become a part of their little mission? Before they could delve further into that thread of hope, a voice broke through, calling for all kids to gather for a surprise event. The crowd surged, interest peaked, laughter bubbling anew. As Ben ran off, excitement igniting every step, Jake couldn't help but glance back at Clara. He saw that crack of her exterior reforming, that spark igniting, reminding him how powerful connection could be. What were they truly on the verge of accomplishing? Would Clara's heart finally open as she stepped into this community once more? Just then, a child shouted, "Clara! You coming?" And for the first time in what felt like ages, she hesitated, less a flicker of determination crossing her face. Jake's heart raced with possibility. What would this mean for their neighborhood? Would they unite in laughter and purpose, or was this just the beginning of something he hadn't yet grasped? Clara felt the tug of the moment. For too long, she had watched from the sidelines, weighed down by the doubts and fears that had crept into her mind like unwelcome guests. But Ben's innocent excitement and Jake's unwavering support wrapped around her like a warm blanket. "Okay," she finally said with a small nod, her voice gaining strength. "I'll join you." The thrill of the gathering pulsed through her, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope. As she walked toward the sound of the children gathering, Clara noticed how each face lit up with anticipation. The laughter sounded like music, lifting her spirits higher. Jake followed close behind, unable to hide his grin as he watched Clara's tentative smile grow into something more genuine. "You see? Just a small step forward, and look at how everything changes," he said softly, as if he were afraid to break the spell. The children clustered around a vibrant stage where a magician, dressed in a sparkling cape, was preparing for his act. The kids' energy was electric, each kid being pulled into the excitement. Clara stood along the edge, witnessing the transformation of her own heart as well as her surroundings. Jake stood by her, an anchor of encouragement. "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls," the magician announced, his voice booming through the laughter-filled air. "Prepare yourselves for magic that will astonish and amaze." Clara watched as the magician pulled rabbits from hats and performed card tricks that had the kids gasping in wonder. For a moment, she too was drawn into the fantasy. The laughter, the cheers, it felt like glue, binding them all together. "What do you think?" Jake asked, glancing at Clara. "Can we make this magic last longer than just one night?" Clara's mind whirled, feelings clashing. She had spent years convinced that change was beyond reach, that unity was simply a fairy tale. But standing there with Jake and Ben, seeing how joy could reignite those connections, it felt possible. I don't know, she admitted, vulnerability creeping in. What if it's just a moment? Moments can germinate, Jake replied, his words a soothing balm against her worries. Moments lead to efforts, and that sparks change. The magician concluded his act with a dazzling finale, sparks flying and colorful smoke swirling into the air. The children erupted into applause, their tiny hands clapping like thunder. Clara felt her heart swell as Ben's laughter rang sweetly in her ears. Do you feel that, Clara? That's what it's about. Jake pointed out. The laughter, the shared experience. Ben turned to Clara, eyes gleaming. Can we have more of this? Let us make it a thing. You can help. The thought took root inside her, planted by the eagerness of her son and the gentle encouragement of Jake. Could she truly take on such a challenge? Would she remain anchored in her past fears or step into a future that promised connection? Yes, she breathed, the word barely escaping her lips, but heavy with intent. Then, a child shouted, "Look! There's a contest. We need more kids to join." The crowd grew in excitement, a chain reaction of energy that drew Clara closer to the warmth of community. Jake squeezed her arm lightly. This is just the beginning, Clara. You've got a lot of people behind you. She breathed in deeply, the scent of nearby barbecue wafting through the air, mingling with the sweetness of cotton candy. But just as the excitement reached a new peak, a commotion erupted by the dessert table. A couple of kids had spilled all the ice cream, sending a wave of sugar and chaos crashing through the celebration. Clara's heart dropped. Would this derail everything? The laughter that had just soared suddenly seemed on the verge of crumbling. She caught Jake's watchful eyes, and in that moment, she realized that even chaos could be an opportunity, a puzzle they could solve together. As she stepped toward the messy scene, a new determination surged through her. Let's tidy this up together. Clara called, her voice cutting through the rising panic. Who's with me? The crowd paused, eyes upon her. Would they join her? Would they help turn this chaos into another moment of connection? Would she truly become the leader they all needed? A murmur spread through the crowd, but Clara stood tall, feeling both vulnerable and powerful as all eyes focused on her. Before she could reassess her next move, there was a response shaping in the air, an answer that could either lead to unity or push her back into uncertainty. And then she heard it. Count me in. A voice shouted, cutting through the tension, sparking a shift in the energy around them. What lay ahead as the community gathered around her? Would this moment of chaos transform into something beautiful? Clara steadied herself, ready for whatever came next. The response to Clara's call transformed the air around them. Kids began to shuffle forward, and parents stepped in, hesitant smiles appearing on their faces. There was an energy buzzing, like electricity waiting to illuminate a dark room. Clara could feel her heart race as people began to pick up napkins, bowls, and sticky ice cream cups. Just grab a towel. A little boy shouted, charging toward the mess with all the enthusiasm of youth. Clara watched as Jake pushed through the throng, reaching for the biggest pile of ice cream. Here, I'll take this side. His infectious laughter sent a ripple of motivation through the gathering crowd. Okay, everyone. Let us go. We can do this. Clara shouted, sensing the collective momentum picking up speed, turning panic into a team effort. She rushed to Ben, who was already on his knees, wiping up ice cream with a determined expression. His innocence drove her forward, reminding her of the joy in small acts of kindness. As Clara joined in, more children chimed in, scooping up fallen treats. It was becoming less about the mess and more about the connection. Someone laughed at the absurdity of the situation, and laughter spread through the group, knitting them tighter together. A girl with bright pigtails laughed as she held up her sticky hands. We're like ice cream ninjas. In the chaos, Clara couldn't help but smile. Here was all of the magic she had been looking for: community, joy, teamwork, even if it stemmed from an unexpected spill. "You're right. Ice cream ninjas are unstoppable," Clara exclaimed, which brought out another round of laughter. It felt good. Clara turned to Jake, and their eyes met across the makeshift cleanup effort. He nodded, a spark of pride glowing in his gaze. "See? This is what it's all about." Moments of chaos turned into something greater. Minutes passed, and the area began to clear. Clara was surprised when she looked around and realized how much they had achieved together. The dessert table, once engulfed in a sugary disaster, was recognizable again. Kids were helping each other, guiding their friends with enthusiasm. Clara felt the warmth of connection wrap around her like a cozy blanket, just like before. "Here comes the cleanup crew," Ben cried out, presenting a trash bag filled to the brim with ice cream wrappers and cups. Cheering erupted around them, a sweet symphony echoing through the vibrant festival. The applause of the gathered parents filled her with pride. Clara could hardly believe what she was seeing. If only moments could compound like these, what new peaks could await them? But just as the moment began to settle, a thought flicked across her mind. What if their mini revolution could extend beyond the festival? Was this ice cream cleanup just the beginning? With the energy pulsing through her now, Clara turned to the group, excitement bubbling in her chest. "If we can come together for ice cream, think of what else we can tackle." She felt a rush of possibility, and it sparked a fire in the eyes around her. Before anyone could respond, a voice broke through the air, clear and sharp: "How about a community garden? We can grow food together." The suggestion drew collective gasps of interest. Excitement rippled through Clara as she realized this was it. This was the magic Jake had talked about. "Yes. A community garden," Clara shouted, her voice rising with hope. "Let us plant seeds of change." But just as the crowd buzzed with ideas, a nagging doubt flickered in Clara's heart. Could she be the one to guide these budding visions into reality? She felt the weight of these expectations befalling her once more. What if she let everyone down? Before she could spiral into her own worries, the crowd rallied. Kids began throwing out more ideas, building enthusiasm with each shout. The community was alive with possibilities, and Clara realized that maybe it wasn't about leading. Maybe it was about fostering this newfound connection. As the sun began to dip lower on the horizon, bathing everything in a golden glow, Clara looked around at all the hopeful faces. She breathed in deeply, tasting the sweetness of change. What lay ahead? Would she embrace this journey together with them, or would her doubts hold her back once more? With the energy buzzing in the air, Clara felt determined to rise to the occasion. But the question lingered: could she nurture this spark of community, or would she retreat into the shadows once again? Clara's heart raced as the ideas flowed like the melting ice cream they had just cleaned up. She stood amidst a whirlwind of suggestions, each voice blending into a tapestry of hope. Kids shouted out ideas for what to plant, names for their garden, and how they'd share the fruits of their labor. Tomatoes. Everyone loves tomatoes. One girl cried, her eyes wide with excitement. Carrots. Can we grow carrots? Another chimed in, bouncing on her toes. Clara felt the energy pulsing through her. She caught Jake's eye, his encouraging smile grounding her in the moment. They were surrounded by bubbling enthusiasm. Wasn't this exactly what she had been searching for? She took a deep breath, trying to quench the flickering doubts in her mind. You know, she said, raising her voice over the chatter, we can do this together. Maybe we can create a gardening club. We can learn about planting and taking care of our community. Yeah. Gardening club. The kids echoed, their joy infectious. For a moment, she almost forgot about her fears. But then they returned with a vengeance. Could she handle it? Who was she to steer this ship? She wasn't a leader. She was just a regular mom trying to find her way. A little hand tugged at her shirt. Ben looked up at her, sincerity radiating from his small frame. "You can do it, Clara. Just like today. We can help." His words cut through her uncertainty like a knife. Here was this child, so full of faith. Clara let out a shaky laugh, swallowed her fears, and nodded. "You're right, Ben. With all of us together, we can make it happen." The crowd erupted in cheers, and she felt a warm flood of gratitude wash over her. Their excitement fueled her determination. "Let us meet next week to start planning, okay?" The children responded with shouts of yes. As they clapped their hands together, parents began to lean in, enthusiasm spreading beyond the kids, their faces lighting up with the idea of contributing something positive to their community. Clara's pulse quickened. This energy had the potential to create real change. The start of something meaningful. Yet, as her eyes swept over the gathering, she couldn't ignore the hair-raising anxiety creeping back. What if she failed? What if the club fizzled out before it even began? But as she peered deeper into the crowd, she felt emboldened by the sincere smiles of people ready to support her. She could either let her past doubts suffocate her now or embrace this second chance. "All right. Let us plant some seeds of hope," she shouted, her voice ringing clear and vibrant. The children cheered once more, and Clara couldn't help but beam. It felt like the weight of her insecurities began to lift. As she turned to Jake, the sun slipped beneath the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to dance around them. He leaned closer, whispering, "You really can do this, Clara. I believe in you." She met his gaze, her heart swelling with courage. "Thank you, Jake. But, can I really keep them engaged? This is just the beginning of something bigger." Before he could answer, a siren blared in the distance, cutting through their moment. Clara and the crowd turned their attention to the sound, something unsettling crackling in the air. Though the festival buzzed with hope, a distant tension gnawed at her. Clara swallowed hard. What else could come next? She sensed the atmosphere shift with uncertainty as parents exchanged glances. The warmth from earlier seemed fragile now, just as the night began to settle around them. The question lingered in her mind, what challenges awaited them with this new venture? Would the threats surrounding their community dim their newfound spark, or could they push forward together, no matter the cost? The night deepened, shadows settling like whispers around Clara. A chill slipped into the air, and she could see the faces of the kids fading slightly in the twilight, but the excitement still flickered in their eyes. She caught Ben's gaze. He beamed like a small lantern amidst the growing darkness. "All right, everyone," Clara called, her voice attempting to cut through the doubt that wrapped around her like a fog. "Let us start thinking about what we want to name our gardening club. How about the Growing Gardeners?" The crowd buzzed at the suggestion, but then they fell silent. A small boy at the front raised his hand, his face etched in concentration. "What about the Green Thumbs?" he suggested. "Or Garden Explorers?" shouted another child eagerly. Clara smiled, heart swelling at their enthusiasm. "Those are great. Let us keep the ideas coming." The voices blended together, creating a spark of joy that momentarily chased away her lingering fears. As the children continued to brainstorm, Clara felt the familiar mix of anxiety and excitement tangle in her chest. It was a daunting task to harness this energy and steer it towards something meaningful. Uncertainty clawed at her mind. What if they all lost interest? What if she couldn't keep up? Suddenly, the sound of an approaching vehicle drew her attention. The siren had faded, but the headlights of a police car illuminated their gathering, slicing through the twilight. Clara's heart skipped a beat as she exchanged nervous glances with Jake. What was going on? As the patrol car pulled to a stop, they could see officers stepping out, their faces masked with concern. The murmurs of the crowd shifted from excitement to anxiety, reverberating through the air. Clara felt her stomach twist. Is everyone all right? One of the officers shouted as he approached, his tone firm yet reassuring. We received reports of strange activity in the park. Just wanted to make sure all of you are safe. Clara stepped forward, her heart hammering against her ribs. We're fine. We're just starting a gardening club, she managed to say, trying to project confidence even as her palms grew sweaty. The officer's eyes softened. That sounds great. But you might want to wrap things up for tonight. It's not the best time to linger around. He glanced around, looking at the children's eager faces and the parents' tense expressions. A hush fell over the crowd. Clara felt the warmth she had kindled beginning to flicker in response to the gloomy shadow creeping in. Thank you for looking out for us, she finally spoke, her voice steadying as she turned back to the children. Let us regroup next week. We've started something wonderful today, and I know we can keep it going. Okay. The kids chimed, though the excitement seemed dimmer now. As the crowd began to disperse, Clara noticed Ben pulling at Jake's hand. Can we really do it, Mr. Jake? Can we have our garden? Clara held her breath. She wanted to instill hope, but doubt shadowed her thoughts. Would they have the courage to carry this forward after tonight? Of course we can, buddy. Jake replied with a spark that reminded Clara of the earlier festivities. We just need to stick together. Right, Clara? With the weight of their gazes on her, she nodded. That's right. Together, we'll make our garden a reality. But as the last of the evening light dwindled, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that danger was near. The night was far from over, and a lingering question gnawed at her: what challenges would surface next? As they walked away from the park, Clara sensed a storm gathering on the horizon. Would the threat they felt today turn out to be a real danger, or could they find a way to rise above it all? The following week dawned with the promise of change hanging in the air, and electric anticipation as Clara stood in front of her window, watching the sun rise over the small Midwestern town. The events of the block party had rippled through their community, igniting a spirit of camaraderie that had lain dormant. But as she sipped her coffee, Clara couldn't shake the nagging worry that loomed over her like dark clouds. Would anyone really show up for their first gardening club meeting? A fluttering of nerves twisted in her stomach. The uncertainty of that evening felt like an echo, a reminder of how fragile their newfound connection truly was. Just as she was about to spiral, she heard the familiar sound of Ben's laughter ringing through their home. Mom! The neighbors are coming! He shouted, excitement bubbling in his voice. Clara rushed to the door, and her heart skipped as she saw kids of all ages, parents tagging along, shovels, trowels, and enthusiasm clutched in their hands. The moment washed over her like a refreshing wave. Are you ready to grow some good things today? Clara called out, her smile radiant as she stepped outside. Yeah. The kids cheered, their voices harmonizing in pure joy. As they gathered in the community park, Clara marveled at the sight before her, a workspace filled with laughter, energy, and a sense of endless possibility. Each smiling face reinforced her resolve, a certainty ignited deep within her. The garden wouldn't merely grow plants, it would nurture connections. You guys have all brought your fantastic ideas this week, she announced, beaming. Let us put them to work together. Let us get our hands dirty and create something special. As the kids grabbed shovels and started digging into the fertile earth, Clara felt hope bloom alongside the seedlings they would soon plant. No more worrying about the fate of their club, they were creating something tangible, a legacy rooted in kindness. Yet, as the sun climbed higher, the distant sound of police sirens pierced the cheerful atmosphere. Clara's heart dropped, the warmth of the day dimming like storm clouds rolling in. What's happening? Ben asked, his brows furrowing. Let us just focus on what we can control right now, Jake replied, laying a gentle hand on Clara's shoulder. The unwavering support steadied her, allowing her to breathe again. Even as uncertainty loomed, she knew they had to keep their spirits high. Clara steered the group toward planting more seeds, their laughter providing a shield against the shadows that threatened to creep forward. As the children laughed and patted dirt around the newly planted seedlings, a police officer approached their gathering again, but this time with a look of curiosity rather than concern. It appeared he had returned not to quell the festivities but to see the roots of kindness spreading in their town. "Just checking in," the officer said with a smile. "What's going on here?" "This is our gardening club," one excited child shouted, waving his arms. "We're planting a community garden." The officer, visibly surprised, lowered to eye level with the kids. "Wow, that sounds incredible. Helping the community through gardening? I love it." Suddenly, Clara felt something shift. Behind her, neighbors began to gather, drawn by the sounds of laughter and the promise of connection. She watched as fear and judgment slipped away, replaced by newfound hope. Clara's heart raced as people rallied to support the kids, returning tools, throwing down blankets, sharing snacks. "Your work here is inspiring," the officer continued. "We need more kindness in our neighborhoods." "It can't just be one event, can it?" Clara responded, her courage ignited. "We need to keep this spirit alive." With that declaration, a wave of motivation surged through her community. Parents began sharing ideas, discussing how they could continue these gardening efforts and maintain a spirit of unity. Maybe now, there was hope for something greater than mere survival. This was the beginning of a solid, supportive community. Clara felt a small tear slip from her eye. But it wasn't sadness, it was pure joy. As they worked throughout the day, planting row after row of sprouts, the sun began to set, casting a warm orange glow across the sky. Clara took a step back, witnessing the magic unfold. The joy in the air was palpable. Everyone around her was smiling, sharing, participating in the spirit of togetherness she once feared was lost. Ben sprinted to her side, dirt smudged on his cheeks, eyes shining. "See, Mom? Look what we've made. Kindness can grow everywhere." Clara's heart swelled, the promise of the community garden blossoming in her heart. This was only the beginning, and in that moment, surrounded by laughter and hope, she understood this was the life she had been yearning for, the start of something magical. As she glanced over at Jake, their eyes met, both filled with shared vision and excitement for what lay ahead. The potential in that moment was immeasurable. What challenges awaited them in this adventure? Did they have what it took to keep breathing life into this garden of kindness? As Clara took a deep breath of the sweet summer air, she knew one thing for certain: together, they could tackle anything that came their way. Now was the moment to seize that joy and strength, to transform not only a garden but their entire community. And just like that, Clara took her first step forward, the whisper of change echoing in her heart. Change was indeed possible, and it was just beginning. This all matters. Your support means everything. You need to subscribe now to witness these transformations. Leave a like right this moment to feed the algorithm and keep such stories alive. Comment below, sharing your feelings about this journey and what's growing in your own community. Don't wait not even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to feel the impact of kindness today.